fabled city of Ophria, a city of untold wealth destroyed years ago in a single night in a terrible sandstorm, entombing its population and treasure. It is spring in Harligland. Over the winter, storms have resculpted the sand dunes in the Athalpa Desert, revealing parts of the fabled city. The race is on between the armies on the island, to recover what treasure they can before the shifting desert reclaims its prize.
Well, hello again everybody, and welcome to another battle report. This time a bit more mainstream. It's a loot scenario. It's actually in preparation for a tournament that I was going to attend, and in this scenario it's my undead against Andy's salamanders in a loot scenario. So here's a look at the terrain. We're fighting in the fabled city of Ophria, and you can see in the terrain there we've got a couple of height 2 hills. We've got a couple of height 4 blocking terrain. We've got some height 4 desert woods. And we've got a couple of large fallen timbers creating obstacles in the terrain. Looking at the loot scenario, you can see in the centre there behind the ruined temple, there's one of the loot objectives. I put one to the left, and then Andy put a second one to the left as well. So you can see all three are on this side of the board. So this is probably the area we're going to be playing in. Looking at the armies then, Andy's salamanders, he's got a regiment of Gekito Sky Raiders. He's got a clan lord on a fire drake with wings. He's got a horde of ancients on rhinosaurs. An emissary. Now this is the special character you're allowed in the tournament, and I'll give you his statistics later on. So the rest of the army is 1,995 points, and you get a free emissary as well. He's got a herald. He's got a horde of salamander primes. He's got 2 fire drakes and 2 regiments of Gekito hunters. And he's got another horde of ancients on rhinosaurs. Looking then at my army, I've got a vampire and a dragon, a troop of ghouls, a horde of werewolves, a regiment of Soul Reaver cavalry, Lady Ilona, a horde of barrow wights, and there's my emissary, a regiment of revenants, a necromancer on a horse, and a regiment of mummies. The Emissary of Destruction is a 4-game tournament, and you get 1 emissary with each game, but you can only use each one once. So you can see they're all basically the same statistics, but the one at the top is stealthy, has 2 additional attacks. The next one down has regen 5 up. Third one down has rallying 2, and the bottom one has fireball 10. And I think that we both selected the rallying 2 emissary for this scenario. Looking at my cunning plan, what I wanted to do on the left there was to move my infantry blocks forwards to secure those 2 tokens, and to move my fast moving wing there with the vampire on the dragon and the werewolves round behind the ruins, secure that objective, and then be in a position to outflank any of Andy's salamanders who were moving towards those 2 objectives. Now I had a real problem here with the Soul Reaver Knights. At the moment my preferred option was to move them that way to support the infantry in securing the 2 objectives on the left. But I was very worried by the strength of these units here, with a horde of the rhinosaurs and the clan lord and also Gekito raiders. I was very concerned that my right flank would not be sufficient to break through there, and so I had to have the option for those Soul Reaver cavalry to move that way as well. And this is going to be a problem, because the longer I delayed in making a decision which way they were going, the more likely it was that Andy's forces could defeat my left or my right flank independently. So I really needed to get into battle quickly and commit those forces. There's a battlefield looking from the left-hand side. You can see my Barrow Wights on the right there, Lady Alona, the Barrow Wights, the emissary behind them, my Revenants on foot, my Mounted Necromancer and the mummies facing down a large portion of Andy's army over there. And on the right, there's my right flank with the vampire who seems to have walked off his dragon at the moment, the werewolves and the ghouls facing down Andy's left flank. And in the middle there, the Soul Reaver cavalry who could go either way around that large block of ruins. And those ruins were causing me a real problem on my side of the board as it separated my army into two distinct sections. So after the first turn, we'd both moved forward a bit. I'd moved forward on my right, and I'd decided that I couldn't afford to wait, and therefore I would put my forces into position where Andy could actually charge them. And I felt that my vampire on dragon would be able to survive the attacks from the clan lord, and I'd positioned the ghouls in such a way that he couldn't get into the flank of vampires, and my werewolves would, I felt, be able to then counter strike. And I'd also moved Lady Alona to that side to assist if required as well. As you can see, there's an obstacle there stopping those Gekaters getting into the flank if that's what we were trying to do, whereas I would allow that charge from the front. So at the end of my turn, Lady Alona, having not marched, was in position to do something. She has got a Lightning Bolt 3 spell, which she cast, and amazingly, with two very high nerve rolls, took out a troop of the Gekatar warriors. Sorry, a regiment of Gekatar warriors. On to turn 2. And Andy did charge in. As you can see, all he was able to get into my vampire was the clan lord and his emissary, because I was out of range of the rhinosaurs. The rhinosaurs, however, did take on the ghouls on the flank. He killed the ghouls on the flank, but was only able to put 7 wounds onto the vampire, which was not enough to kill it. And that's now fixed his emissary and his clan lord in position, ready for a counter move by my werewolves. So that plan has paid off to a certain extent. And as you can see, in my turn, I moved up. I charged into the flank of the clan lord with the werewolves, and I moved the knight and also my necromancer on horse forward to assist in that battle. On this side, we were still moving up, exchanging the odd shot, and you can see my emissary has taken 1 wound, but we haven't joined combat yet. So turn 3, and my counter move worked. I took out the clan lord and also the emissary, but I'm now facing down his cavalry, which is turned to face my way. And so Lady Alona, who had also been flanked there, chose to overrun in order to block a move by that cavalry. Now, with most characters, that would be a dangerous move, as the cavalry would simply overrun the character and move on, but she is quite tough, and I hope that she would be able to put them in position to enable my counter moves next turn. And in fact, Lady Alona's overrun carries her so far, she actually makes it into combat with the rhinosaurs. And because she was fighting an individual before, she can actually have another round of combat. And in this combat, she actually manages to put 5 wounds onto that unit. In Andy's turn, the rhinosaurs countercharge Lady Alona. And you can see on the right there, the Sky Raiders, and on the left, hiding behind the ruins, there's a herald who has also got a shooting attack, are lining up to take on my vampire on dragon. And on the left flank now, and his cavalry's moved forward, rhinosaurs have charged into the mummies. Everything else, the fire drakes have moved forward and are doubtless about to open fire. On the right flank, the Gekatar Sky Raiders have managed to get behind my lines and are now flank on to my vampire again. And here on the right flank, and he opens fire onto the vampire on the dragon with his Sky Raiders and also with the shooting attack from his herald, and managed to waver the vampire lord. Meanwhile, in combat, the rhinosaurs managed to put 4 wounds onto Lady Ilona. Over on the left flank, Andy's shooting takes out the Revenant regiment completely, and in the combat his rhinosaurs managed to put 14 wounds onto the Mummy regiment, and not surprisingly kill them. Over here now on my turn, I do some rather strange moves. The vampire is wavered, so moves backwards. I move Ilona to charge into the Gekatar Sky Raiders on the right, who are out of picture, and I move the werewolves round to the right, because that then allows the Soul Reaver cavalry to charge into the salamanders on the rhinosaurs. And you can see at the bottom there we've got Ilona going into the Sky Raiders. Over here I get my emissary and also the Barrow Wights into his horde of rhinosaurs, and I'm hopeful that might be enough to pop them in one go. If not, I could be in trouble there. And over here on the right, the Soul Reaver cavalry do destroy the rhinosaurs there. Ilona puts 5 wounds onto the Sky Raiders. Over here, I managed to put 10 wounds onto the rhinosaurs. Now they're a tough unit and they're a high nerve, and unfortunately, I don't kill them. Turn 4. Right over here, more shooting at the vampire, but not enough this time to waver him, so he is now free to move, although he is up now to 11 wounds. Over here, the rhinosaurs kill my emissary, and of course because it's an individual they can overrun, and so they immediately overrun into the Barrow Wights and fight another turn. And with the 2 fire drakes in the flank as well, the Barrow Wights are routed. So a good turn. That's completely destroyed my left flank now, and that leaves the 2 tokens on that side of the table in Andy's hands. Over here, I've got the werewolves into the Sky Raiders. I've moved Ilona over there to engage the Herald, and I've moved the Soul Reaver cavalry onto that token in the centre. The vampire has turned to face over to right there, and you can see in the top left there, right in front of that horde of salamander primes, my mounted necromancer has moved in front of it to stop it reforming, and that generates a bit of time for me to move my forces round to try and recoup some of those counters over there. He really is a brave man, taking one for the team there. Have a position from this side, and again you can see that the flank on this side completely overrun with salamanders running over the objectives, whereas on the right I've taken the right, but I've got to move these forces now around quickly in order to try and catch some of those objectives over here. I put 1 wound onto the salamanders with the breath weapon from the vampire. That won't cause them any harm. And over here, Ilona puts 3 wounds onto the herald. But I don't think she manages to waver or rout him. And inevitably, the Sky Raiders are routed by the werewolves. Moving on to turn 5, running out of time now. I've really got to move quickly to get round to those 2 objectives. And over here, Andy, as you can see, moves in to kill that necromancer. That's the position we're in at this stage. And inevitably, 11 wounds. And there goes the necromancer. My turn, I managed to get my Soul Reaver cavalry and Ilona forward. And I've moved the werewolves to actually claim that counter, so the Soul Reaver cavalry didn't claim it, or had claimed it and dropped it, so that they were able to move more freely, and the werewolves have moved to take it. Over here I flew the vampire over the top of the salamanders in order to block any counter move from the rhinosaurs. And again, this is a one-way ticket. That vampire is not going to survive that, but it will buy time for me to try and take the token off the salamander horde. In combat, look at that, I do 16 wounds, but that is not sufficient. That is one tough horde in there, and that's not sufficient to even waver it. So moving into turn 6 means I'll get one more chance to have a go at it. Inevitably, there goes the rhinosaurs into the vampire, do another 9 wounds, and he is dead. And over here, unbelievably, gets the horde of salamander primes, and also I think that's another fire drake, I'm not sure what it is, but he gets something else in there as well, and does a massive 14 wounds on the Soul Reaver cavalry. Now I really wasn't expecting that. I thought they'd survive that and be in a position to counter move, but that kills them and they're removed, which means my chance of winning this game has really gone out of a window. So my move, Ilona countercharges into that horde of salamanders who are holding a token. 3 wounds on top of what we've already got, actually finally manages to rout them. The position at the end of the game with 1 token each, lots of dead on both sides. Andy has probably got a few more points on the table than me. I'm not sure, we didn't actually total it up. There's not much in it, but overall that was a draw for first turn out for my undead army. So, to review that battle, what I was hoping to achieve was to move up on the left with the infantry unit, secure those objectives, come round the right, capture the centre objective, and have my mobile units able to move into the flank of any Anders forces who were contesting those objectives. Now, in fact, what I actually did, I was much more cautious on the left, moving forward slowly in order to give time for my right flank to move round those objectives. But that meant that Andy on the left there in particular had the opportunity to move his forces forward, claim those objectives. On the right he moved forward, and that then forced my hand and forced my Soul Reaver cavalry into his units over there. Now I did destroy all of those units, was able then to move forward and secure the centre objective and move round, but it did take a lot of my force, and that meant that on the left it enabled Andy to move up and destroy my units almost piecemeal. I didn't play them very well at all. Perhaps I might have expected to kill his horde of rhinosaurs when I charged in with quite a lot of my forces, the Barrow Whites and the Emissary, but it wasn't to be, and it meant that he was able to take those units on one by one and kill them off, leaving then him in control of the left-hand side and 2 objectives. By the time I managed to get my forces round the top of the ruins in the centre there and into position, we then had a big battle over there. And again, I think I was perhaps a bit unlucky to lose those Soul Reaver cavalry in 1 turn of combat. But that meant, having lost that, I was then able, fortunately, to countercharge with Ilona and kill off the Salamander Primes, which left us with 1 token each and as a draw. So it was a good close game, a lot of fun playing that. First time out for this particular army, getting ready for a tournament, and I learnt a lot from it. So I hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you very much for watching.